We all know about the transatlantic slave trade, the forced migration of millions of Africans to the Americas. It is a chapter in history that has been extensively studied, discussed, and remembered. But what if I told you that long before Africans were shackled in chains and transported across the Atlantic, another group of people had already suffered a similar fate? What if I told you that Native Americans, the original inhabitants of the very land that European colonizers set foot on, were among the first to be captured, enslaved, and sold as property? This is a history that has been buried under centuries of silence. A history of betrayal, survival, and resilience. The enslavement of Native Americans was not just an isolated occurrence. It was an extensive, systematic practice that spanned multiple continents and shaped the trajectory of entire nations. Yet, it remains one of the most overlooked aspects of colonial history. Today, we uncover this forgotten slave trade, a slave trade that began long before the first Africans arrived in bondage. This is not just a minor footnote in history books. The practice of enslaving Native Americans was widespread, affecting countless tribes, displacing entire communities, and leading to long-term cultural destruction. It was a practice that altered the balance of power in the Americas, fueling violent conflicts between indigenous nations and European settlers while laying the groundwork for future systems of oppression. The scars of this dark period still linger today, deeply embedded in the history of Native American communities. But why is it that so few people know about this? Why has this brutal chapter been omitted from mainstream historical narratives? And, more importantly, how did it happen? Who was responsible? And in what ways did Native Americans resist their enslavement? To understand the origins of Native American slavery, we must go back to the very beginning of European colonization in the Americas. It all started in 1492 when Christopher Columbus, an ambitious explorer under the sponsorship of Spain, set foot on the shores of the Caribbean. His arrival marked the beginning of a new era, one that would bring immense suffering to the indigenous peoples of the New World. Columbus did not merely observe the people he encountered, he saw them as resources. In his journals, he described the native inhabitants as intelligent, physically strong, and capable of hard labor. But more importantly, he saw them as potential servants. In his own words, he wrote, "They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want." And Columbus wasted no time in acting upon this thought. On his very first voyage back to Spain, he took native captives, some as gifts for the Spanish monarchy, others to be sold into slavery. This